The Coinbase IPO is today. Now, we don't know exactly what time today. This thing's going to go live and then probably go to the moon, but we do have a whole lot more information right now than we did last week. So we have a bunch to cover before this thing is tradable. That way you know everything you need to know regarding what price you should potentially hop in at. So we're going to cover all the updates from last week, and then I'm going to cover a spreadsheet that I made and actually tweaked since last week that gives us kind of a forward P to E expectation as to what price this may open at today, and then what price this may sit at about a year from now, given three different scenarios: a less than expected sales scenario, an average sales scenario, and then a bullish, this thing's going to go to the moon scenario as to where the share price may be a year from now. So first off, the NASDAQ gave Coinbase a reference price of $250 per share. So this gives it a fully diluted valuation of mid $60 billion. And this is huge. This would make it one of the top 100 most valuable companies in the country. I think it would make it the 85th company as far as valuation goes, just straight on opening, and in the crypto industry, the first big crypto IPO. I mean, this is like a landmark day for crypto. And yeah, we're going to talk about the crypto aspect here in a second. The IPO is going to go through a direct listing instead of a regular traditional IPO. This means instead of raising cash by selling new shares to a group of institutional investors, Coinbase is going to allow existing shareholders to start selling some of their shares at a market set price. This is what companies recently did, like Spotify, Palantir, and Roblox. Now, we can take some information from the most recent significant direct listings and then kind of figure out where exactly the price may land for Coinbase based off of those companies. So with the most recent 5 direct listings being Spotify, Slack, Palantir, Asana, and Roblox, the opening price where an average investor like you and I could actually buy the shares was about 37% above the reference price. So that would mean, just if we were to do the same 37% calculation, if it opens at $250 a share, that would be $343 a share before your average everyday retail investor could plop some money down and hope that thing is going to just go to the moon and print some tendies. Now, this thing is going to be historic for several reasons. First, because of the crypto play. And I'm thinking right now that because of this craziness with the IPO, with Coinbase being the first big crypto IPO, we're also going to see Bitcoin and Ether skyrocket today. That's just a hunch of mine, but I think we're going to see that skyrocket today. At the very least, we're going to see a ton of volume in trading in those. And that's because Coinbase makes most of their money off of transaction fees with Bitcoin and Ether. And things tend to work out where if there's hype in one area, that related area is also going to be hyped up. And Bitcoin's already sitting really high. So it would just follow the trend that it's been going on at record highs in the recent last few days. Now, another factor that is making this extremely wild is Coinbase just last week announced their kind of preliminary estimated first quarter results, and they are mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. So they're saying that their sales are going to be about $1.8 billion for the quarter and net income between $730 million and $800 million. Compare that to $32 million for the quarter a year before. So like we have crypto that's really hot. We have an amazing Q1 and the first crypto IPO. Like all these factors together, this thing is going to be absolutely nutty. It's going to be one for the record books. So let's go over to the spreadsheet. Actually, first, make sure you grab a free stock with Webull. All you have to do is deposit $100. You get 2 free stocks, plus they'll give me a free stock just as a thanks for stopping by and making an account. So it's worth doing. You get some free money. Now, I put together this spreadsheet last week just so I could better understand the IPO and what price I would potentially buy in at and hold for the long term, because I wouldn't buy and hold for a short term, just personally, because I don't know what's going to happen in the short term. And I think this is going to be really illuminating and potentially fill some gaps as to what you should expect, maybe a potential price you should hop in at on the Coinbase IPO. Now, this isn't financial advice. Make sure to do your own research as well. So we can see the 2020 income was $322 million, which is great. It's amazing. Now, their 2021 Q1 income, we're going on the low end of their estimate, $730 million. Their shares outstanding, this has actually changed. So I had to change this spreadsheet from last week. There was an update in the actual total amount of shares. It's actually 266 million shares. So this should be 266 million. And I've updated the calculations here. Now, I did a P to E as to the opening price based on 2020 earnings, the most recent earnings that we have, and the expectations. In my last video, I said this will probably be one of these two scenarios, either a P to E of 150 or around 215. And it's going to be about 210 for their P to E if they open up at $250 a share. So it's a very high P to E, but we're comparing this to tech companies that don't even have a P to E because they have no earnings. So I think when we're comparing it to those, it's like you're looking at, different high growth investments. It's kind of like, yeah, you want the one that is just printing cash, and that is Coinbase. Their margins are just, they're absolutely bonkers. So it's going to end up with this PDE of around $210 at opening. But then what price can we actually buy in, and what's a good price to buy in at? So I did some calculations based on their monthly transacting users projections. This is straight from their press release. They said on the low end, we could expect about 4 million monthly transacting users. On the high end, 7 million, 5.5 million in the middle. Then I did some math and figured out that they profit $39.89 on average per monthly transacting user per month. And here's the total monthly profit based on those three scenarios. So we can see it ranges anywhere between 159 million to 280 million. And of course, crypto is really hot right now. The hotter crypto is, the more successful Coinbase is going to be, not only because they hold crypto, but they make most of their money because of transaction fees. So crypto is really hot right now. Obviously, they're doing very well with Q1. So I think taking the middle of the road estimate is probably best. With their last quarter, it was actually higher than their middle of the road estimate. So just for some consideration here. And this would come out to annual profit between 1.9 billion and 3.3 billion based on those various three scenarios. And then taking all this into consideration, we can kind of piece together a forward P to E potential price from a not so bullish to a very bullish scenario. So from not so bullish being this top left to very bullish being this bottom right. So low expectation is this 4 million monthly transacting users. Mid expectation is a 5.5 million average. And then this thing is going to the moon, is the 7 million monthly transacting users. So with the mid expectations, which I think is the best one to kind of, place your bets on, or just expect. It's the best one to expect. It's not too high, not too low. If you're trying to be very conservative, then you'd want to float more on the low end. We can see the opening price, low expectations, $251. If I could buy in at $251, I personally would put a bunch of cash in there. But I think anything in this range is a pretty good buy-in price. And I think that, well, because it's mid-range, it's kind of bullish, but it's lower than what they did in Q1. I think in Q1, they did around 6 million monthly transacting users. So we're going a little bit lower, 5.5 million for this estimation. And then a P to E of, around 60, that might even be on the low end because we're opening at 215 compared to 2020 numbers. The opening price does take into consideration the Q1 figures as well and the most recent private trading prices and things like that. But I think any price within here isn't a bad purchase price. Now we could see a scenario where, maybe you could finally buy in at $600 and then a month later that thing corrects in a big way. And this is when it's important to have a lot of conviction behind your trade. So make sure you do all your due diligence and you're willing to hang with this for the long term, because we don't know what's going to happen in the short term. But I don't think anything in here is going to be too bad. Like I would not give it a 0% chance if we saw this thing in the $1,000 range. Maybe not a high chance, but maybe like a 5% chance that we saw this thing as much as $1,000 in trading sometime today. I don't think that's going to happen, but there's a chance that could happen. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. If this is around the $400 range, when it finally opens, I'm probably going to put some cash in this and just let it sit for a while, because just based on my research, I think that, just how much cash that this company is producing, you really can't beat it anywhere else in the high growth in any high growth sector. So it's gonna be one for the record books. I hope you appreciate this breakdown. Make sure you like this video, subscribe if you learned something new, or if you appreciate the efforts. And yeah, let's just watch this wild ride. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.